Welcome back, everybody. It's me, E-Man, and today we're going to review Chi-Raq. Based on an ancient Greek play, the women of Chicago decide to go on a sex strike to stop the senseless violence between two rival gangs. Director Spike Lee manages to find some rather unique and creative ways to slip in some very important messages throughout this film. What's great about the messages is that they're far from being politically correct. Whether you agree with the message or not, you can at least respect its sincerity, especially given the gravity of the situation of violence that's being discussed. It was somewhat surreal to see that some of the people in the film were the actual victims of gun violence. We were shown gang members who shared their real life experiences, and also some of the actual mothers who lost their children to gun violence in Chicago. Across the board, there were some solid performances given by the actors. Angela Bassett delivered a strong performance in her role as Miss Helen. John Cusack excelled in his role as a fiery activist preacher. Jennifer Hudson captured just a small glimpse of what it might be like to actually be a mother who loses their child due to violence. And Teyonah Parris does a really nice job of leading the film overall. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get straight to the bad.
The bad.
Unfortunately for Chi-Raq, despite the many moments where this film takes a very serious tone towards the violence, the sex-related scenes are going to be a bit of a distraction for some viewers. I don't personally believe that it's the movie's fault, mainly because for some reason a lot of viewers believe that Chi-Raq was going to be some very serious documentary, which it obviously isn't. And given that assumption, some viewers are going to completely neglect the underlying message about violence, which unfortunately undermines the entire purpose of the film. Another knock on this film is probably going to be one of those main scenes between Nick Cannon and Teyonah Parris's characters. Their confrontation seemed a little bit prolonged and probably could have been cut back by a couple of minutes or so. And it just made that particular scene seem very awkward, especially when you're watching this in a dark room full of strangers. I suppose you could take this bad however you wish, but anyone from Chicago knows that one of the biggest problems with the gun violence here is the fact that some of these incidents involve youth killing their own peers. The unimaginable horror of kids killing other kids is unfortunately a problem that I don't even think that this film was able to tackle, and unfortunately it wasn't addressed either. Okay, let's get to the reason.
The reason.
Let's begin with this. This is a Spike Lee film. If you're familiar with Spike Lee's work, then you already know it's in a class of its own. So given all the controversy surrounding this film, I'd like to kind of address some of the critics who have yet to even see this movie, but yet still have an opinion about it. E-Man, that first trailer really bothered me. Okay, so apparently there was a lot of criticism about this movie due to the first trailer that was released. A lot of people thought that based off some of the humorous points that were highlighted in the first trailer, that this movie was going to make fun of all the gun violence in Chicago and make light of the whole situation. Now, in the description below, I'm going to post a link for Spike Lee's most recent interview where he addresses that that's clearly not the case. And actually, if you're also interested, Spike Lee released a second trailer with a more serious tone, and I'll post the link down below as well. You could view that trailer and maybe that'll change your perspective. Okay, E-Man, that trailer was a little bit better, but why couldn't he show that in the first place? So let me ask you this. Did you happen to see When the Levees Broke? You know, that seriously toned Spike Lee documentary about the events of Hurricane Katrina? Won a 2006 Peabody Award. Did you see that one? No? So what makes you think that the general public is going to run and flock to see this seriously toned, depressing documentary about the deaths of black children, gangs, and gun violence? I wouldn't want to see that. To be honest with you, I literally see that almost every other day on the evening news. Man, shut up, E-Man. Spike Lee is still making fun of the violence in Chicago. Whoa, settle down. I'd like to remind everyone that this is Spike Lee we're talking about. The same man that brought us Get on the Bus, Do the Right Thing, and Malcolm X. The same man who has made the majority of his work about the struggle and the plight of black people in America. Do we honestly believe that out of nowhere he's just going to start making fun of the deaths of innocent black children? Do we honestly believe that Jennifer Hudson, who's lost 3 family members to gun violence in Chicago, would sign up for a prominent role in this film? Father Michael Pfleger, a Catholic priest of St. Sabina Church in Chicago with a predominantly black congregation, who has been incredibly instrumental in leading the fight against violence and injustice in Chicago, has come out to support this film. Do we really believe that Father Pfleger would partner up with Spike Lee to help make this movie if it were to make fun of the violence in Chicago? Come on, son. Now, if that's not enough to dispel some of the unwarranted and ignorant criticism, yes, ignorant, because if you haven't seen the film, you're talking about something you know nothing about. I'd like to break down some key factors in this movie before you decide to go see it or not. As you could tell from the first trailer, this movie does have a decent amount of humor in it. That's because this movie is a satire. For those of you that are unfamiliar with what a satire is the use of humor, irony, ridicule, or exaggeration to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, especially in political matters. So, if you've ever watched an episode of The Daily Show, The Simpsons, or The Boondocks, then you've watched a satire. It is vitally important to know that this film never, ever makes fun of or takes light of the violence in Chicago or the deaths of children. It's very important that you catch this too. The only time that you really see humor is when it's centered around sexual related issues between the men and women, or when it's talking about the portrayal of gangs. It's never funny when there's violence or gun violence or people dying. This film does a really good job of separating the humorous moments with the serious moments, and they never come together. Look, I'm a parent of 2 daughters, and I have family and friends that live in Chicago. So I found it incredibly difficult not to relate to this movie in some way, shape, or form. I personally think that if you're a parent, that you will connect with this movie in some way, even if you have no ties to Chicago. The message in this movie is bigger than Chicago. It brings about a greater sense of gun violence that, well, is a nationwide problem and also sometimes a global problem. In my opinion, Chi-Raq remains respectful to the situation and violence and the trauma that has gone on in Chicago, and it brings about a greater sense of awareness towards gun violence. So when it comes to the rating of this film, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Now let me be extremely clear. This movie is not getting a 10 rating because it's the greatest movie ever made. I gave it a 10 because this is the type of movie that should be watched in the hopes that something, anything, can bring about some sort of change or resolution or end to the violence that plagues our country. So I do encourage you to go out and support this movie. And you know what? Some of you are gonna go out, see it, come back, and completely disagree with me, hopefully respectfully. But here's the thing, the beauty of it all, it's very okay for us to respectfully disagree. Because the whole point of this movie is not about it being liked or disliked. The point of this movie is to get us talking. We need to start talking about gun violence and working together to find a common solution to this problem. With that said, I'll leave you with this. I know I've said it over and over again, but the goal of this movie is to spread awareness about gun violence and to have us keep talking about it. So if you choose not to support this movie, that's fine. My hope is that you're at least doing something else to help contribute to finding a resolution to the end of this gun violence. However, if you choose to ignore this movie, discourage others from seeing it, or go out and bootleg it, then in my opinion, you may just be part of the problem. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. If you've made it this far into the video, I certainly appreciate your time. Don't worry, I'll be coming back with shorter and quicker videos next time around. I really believe in the message of this movie, and you know what? I encourage you to share this review with other people. Hopefully it'll just get more people talking. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Special thanks to Father Michael Pfleger of St. Sabina Church in Chicago for giving me the opportunity to actually attend the world premiere of Chi-Raq Chi-Raq so that I could have the opportunity of reviewing it all for you guys. Stay tuned, my next review is gonna be for Leonardo DiCaprio's newest movie, The Revenant. Whew. You don't wanna miss that one. So until then, I'll see you guys later.
Mm-hmm.